After watching season 2 and doing a season 2 review and actually seeing a few season 2 reviews from other YouTubers, there's a lot of unresolved in me from these past few seasons, especially from season 1 on up to now. Now, season 2 really left a bad taste in my mouth, and honestly, for many others, I just watched Smurf's vlogs. Let's just say that Smurf is not so happy in what happened to some of the characters, one character in particular, and I'm going to get into that. But there were 2 people in the comments that have actually asked me if I was going to make a top 10 list on the things that I hate. I actually made a top 3 list of the things I liked about Andi Mack, because all I can come up with was 3. But I have 10 things that I actually hate about this show right now. So without further ado, here are the top 10 things I hate about Andi Mack. Yeah, I have this at number 10 on this list because this is the last thing that I wrote down, and there is a reason why I call it character amnesia, people. And there are 3 characters that suffer from this in a great way, at least in my opinion. Jonah, Cyrus, and I hate to say it, but Bex. And Bex is more minor than everyone else. The reason why I say she's minor is because she's had a considerable amount of growth, but I'll get into that later. But anyhow, when it comes to Bex, the biggest issue that I have with her is somewhat a little bit of a consistency problem. In the beginning of season 1, the reason why she wasn't really so keen on getting with Bowie is because she thought of him back in the day of how unreliable he was, that he was willing to jump from here, there, and everywhere, go abroad, and just disappear. But as time went on, he showed how reliable he was, and maybe that's the reason why she fell in love with him. But towards the end of season 2, and I'll get to that later about the climax, the one thing that bothered me about her character, pretty much the fact that she was willing to push him away and have him go abroad, halfway all around the world, touring with his band, and being gone for months. After your biggest issue at the time was you didn't think that he was reliable, and then you had to go through all that with Miranda, and then all of a sudden he proves that he was reliable because he chose to stay for his daughter that he's just now getting to know. And you're trying to push him away? That doesn't really make any sense to me at all. That's a little bit of a consistency issue. But honestly, for me, yeah, it is a minor gripe. It's not a huge gripe. That's why I put her as something minor towards the end of the spectrum, or totem pole, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go to the middle now. Jonah. For some reason, Jonah kind of forgot that he had panic attacks towards the end of season 2 and in the beginning of the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2. This was something that he was plagued with for a long time to where he had to keep it a secret. But when he tried out for the ultimate frisbee team, you would think that his anxiety attacks would be going through the roof. I mean, I know mine would. But somehow, towards the end, when he didn't make the team, not only did he come up with a plan, he was very positive about it, and he didn't have an anxiety attack at all. And that revelation didn't even kick in. And I'm just like, wait, if this is something that has been plaguing me for months, or maybe years, however long it has been, and I'm not having it now, I would probably jumping for joy and be doing cartwheels and actually understanding what would work and what wouldn't work. But this wasn't even developed. It wasn't even acknowledged. Not developed, but it wasn't even acknowledged, which shocked me. I'm like, wouldn't his character have some sort of revelation to know what would keep him from having anxiety attacks? And wouldn't it give him the courage to actually tell Andi what was going on when he feels better? I don't know. That was really weird. But the biggest offender, I have to say, is Cyrus. And it's not because of what the writers have done. I'm going to the character and character alone. Cyrus and Andi and Buffy, regardless of them not even being in the same room together per scene, are best friends. Why in the world would you have your best friend's worst enemy that had literally went out of her way to try to get her arrested by getting her stuck on a Ferris wheel after sneaking in a carnival when she influenced her to do it? And an entire episode of season 1 was called Snorpion. Like, seriously, a snake and a scorpion, Snorpion. It was all about not trusting Amber. So why in the world would Cyrus go out of his way to have Buffy to try to befriend his best friend's worst enemy that has literally gave her a lot of grief for all of season 1? All because of her ex. I changed shirts! Cliffhanger! Just teasing, guys. But on a serious tip, guys, honestly, I've already explained majority of my personal feelings towards the finale for season 2 in my review, so I'm just going to make it as brief as possible. We have spent an entire season waiting for Bowie and Bex to get up to this moment, only for it to end on an the same way you ended it with Jonah and with Andi for the end of season 1 leading on into season 2. With them, it made sense. With Bowie and Bex, it didn't. It was more disappointing than it being a cliffhanger. Well, y'all know how much I love Walker. Y'all know how much I feel like they haven't really given Walker any justice, especially the way I talk about him in my reviews, and how I feel like he's literally being treated like Charlie from Girl Meets World. But I also gotta give some love to Miranda. No matter how much you guys hate her, and I understand why, especially how they made her going into season 3. The one thing I said about Miranda in one of my reviews when she was introduced is that I hope that they did not make her the instant bad guy like Disney is known for making all the stepmoms to be the bad women of the entire story. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted to be some sort of conflict, especially the fact that you have Bowie that was introduced to Miranda, and then of course how Bex was okay with it. But the whole idea of a possible blended family, that's the one thing I wanted for Miranda. But of course, down the line, they've already chose their person for Bex to be with and for Bowie to be with. So Miranda had to go. What did you have to do? Make her a villain. Of course, her villain had to be through her child. And her child, I'm sorry, was a full-on klepto. And they had to make her look bad in order to make Bex look better. And that was kind of disappointing. I was hoping that somehow there'll be something that, if they didn't have anything in common down the line, if he wanted to travel and she wanted him to be grounded, maybe that would have been means for going back into my own decision before, well, not decision, but talking about when it came to Bex, her making a decision to actually have Bowie leave and go abroad, it would have made sense if that ended the relationship right then and there, and Bex changed her mind about having Bowie stay where she is, but have him go abroad. That would have made more sense for it to go that way, if that makes any sense to you guys. But unfortunately, they made Miranda the instant villain because they've already made the choice on who that they wanted Bowie to be with. And that was the sad part. I'm hoping they don't do the same thing to Walker that they did to Miranda, because I think Miranda's officially gone. Shame. Could have been something different. There is a huge lack of consistency when it comes to character growth between the kids and the adults. If you honestly think about it, the adults have more growth than the kids, and it's about the kids. Mostly it's about Andi Mack. Andi Mack is pretty much like a roller coaster. She has growth one day and then she goes back to ground zero the next. The same thing with Buffy and Cyrus. Cyrus had a huge, tremendous amount of growth when he came out to his friends, but then all of a sudden that disappeared. With Buffy, she always ended up being very tough and very stern, and then towards the very end, she started to soften up a little bit and at least learn some responsibilities, especially when it came to her I guess at the time when she was helping out a volunteer, helping out a senior citizen, I saw a lot of growth in her. And she was the backbone of the entire group. She really made, she was kind of the voice of reason for the Good Hair crew. But then that kind of disappeared. But the consistency went from season 1 to season 2 throughout with no fluctuation with the adults. When you honestly see Bex, when she grows into an actual mature woman, when she's taking care of Andi, getting her own place, finding a career, graduating from college, and starting her own business. That is a huge amount of growth in 2 seasons. With Cece, you see a lot of growth with her. Before, she was like really tough, really stiff and uptight, and would never fluctuate or deviate her plans. She always had a goal and she stuck to it. But now she fluctuates a lot more often, seeing how Bex is grown and seeing how much Andi has grown. And even though she took care of Andi majority of her life, she sees that Bex is doing her best to take over as a mom. That is a huge amount of growth. When it comes to Bowie definitely became a more mature dad, a more mature man. Before, he was just a free roamer, pretty much without a care in the world. Then he found out he had a daughter and he wanted to marry Bex, but then if that didn't work out, he still was a good dad to Andi. Even though he was seeing Miranda, he still held true to his responsibilities and he still got along with Bex. That's a huge jump. And of course, with Pops just stayed Pops consistently throughout. There was really no change with him until he just up and disappeared and decided to go to Tibet. But I'm going to get into that a little ways down the line. But there was more growth with the adults, more consistent growth with the adults than it was with the kids. And that is a problem, especially when this show is about Andi. Well, it's nighttime now. Minutes has turned to hours, and hours has turned to nighttime. At least I had the opportunity to experience it. Well, unlike this show that skips out on big moments. There are 2 big moments that I'm referring to. One big moment definitely was Buffy's big move. They had 4 episodes extending into this, or at least 3 to the final episode where she was leaving. And there was a lot of emotion between the Good Hair crew. Everybody was gonna miss her. There were so many people that you would never think that would be involved in the final episode, especially with TJ, him riding a ball and having the entire team put the name on. I know Jonah did that. But the fact Jonah came up with the idea of having an outdoor time capsule instead of burying it, having everybody on the basketball team sign it, including TJ, and even having Marty give his shoelaces to, or give something to the actual time capsule. There was a lot of heart and a lot of emotion leading on up to the big move, only for her to leave without saying goodbye. And that was a heartfelt moment, only for the following episode to be when she just came back and her mom instantly found a job that was an hour away. And all that build was for nothing. It was kind of disappointing. Not as disappointed as I was with Pops. I was really pissed when I found out for that episode that Pops still wanted to go to Tibet or wanted to travel without Cece. And it was just something that haphazardly, he just like, look, this is something I've always wanted. I thought he would change his mind. And I understand he has every right to be mad at Cece for investing the retirement money into buying a building without him. I understand that. But the fact that he decides to go halfway around the world and be gone for months just to go traveling without her, and this was haphazardly just brought up to both Andi and to Bex, and he didn't bother to tell Cece when it happened, and she was okay with it, was kind of dirty. The whole situation in itself made Pops look like a very selfish jerk. And honestly, he was the sound mind of the entire family, and you're going to have him do something selfish like that? The building itself was just wrong, and the decision to have him gone in that way was just wrong. It downgraded the character, and I hated that moment. I hated what they did. It just seemed so disrespectful. Trent Garnett and Stoney Westmoreland has been on this show since season 1, and they're still not on the opening credits. Not cool, Disney. Homosexuality and mental disorders are always going to be a sensitive subject when it comes to shows like this. And let's be honest, Disney kind of mishandled both of them. Now, I can go off on a tangent for what they did to Cyrus, and I'm not really so keen on what they did to him as a character at all going down the line. But I will say the first time they did it, in my opinion, they did it for the best intentions. when they actually had a kid, a child like him coming out saying that he might like boys instead of girls, that is something that a lot of kids need to hear. Because there are some young boys and young girls who experience that for the first time at their age. And it was great for them to actually come out with it, but the way they handled it down the line, I don't think they handled it well. And that leads on to my next point, but then let's go on to the mental part of it. When it comes to having anxiety attacks or anxiety disorders, yeah, maybe that was a safe disorder to go to, but I don't really think that any disorder is safe. But honestly, when it came to anxiety attacks, it's always best to try to encourage others to get help. They never encouraged Jonah to go and see a psychologist or somebody to talk to for this problem. The character himself never did. And honestly, he kept more secrets from the people he's supposed to talk to than actually trying to solve the problem. And in my opinion, they handled that poorly. And they should have encouraged him to get help when he needed it, because anxiety disorders are real and they can be very, very dangerous if they're not handled or not handled well or taken care of. And when it comes to homosexuality, I think it would have benefited a lot of young girls and young boys who go through that same thing when they turn 14, and it would have encouraged them to come out and not be afraid. But how they handled it down the line by having Cyrus completely lose his feelings for Jonah and never bring up the fact that he liked boys in the first place was just insulting, especially for the gay community. There were two game-changing points or game-changing situations that has happened in this show that had zero payoff whatsoever. Of course, I talked about the previous one, and that was Cyrus. When Cyrus finally came out to Buffy and how he felt that he had a girlfriend at the time, but he had feelings for Jonah. All that for Jonah to never know that he had feelings for him, and to find out how he would react when he would find out that Jonah is gay. We will never see that because Jonah somehow lost his feelings. Cyrus somehow lost his feelings for Jonah. So we'll never see exactly how Jonah will feel once he finds out that Cyrus is gay. Now, another huge turning point in this entire series was something that I think a lot of girls should know and should see a lot more on Disney shows, especially when it comes to shows like this for preteens. And that was when Andi turned down Jonah. That is the one thing you don't see a lot of girls on Disney shows doing. They will do everything they can to get that guy to pay attention to them. But when Andi did it and she realized it is not working, and she went far beyond the Call of Duty just to get Jonah to notice her, and he still didn't, she turned him down. Not once, but twice. Only for her to go back to him and actually have a relationship with him the next episode. I'm starting to see a pattern here. When it comes to huge pinnacle points, for some reason they're willing to play the safe route and just cap it all real quick. When it comes to when it comes to Cyrus, it was a really big letdown, because I would have loved to see exactly how Jonah will react knowing that Cyrus was gay. But it would have been better for Andi to keep it moving and not look back at Jonah, and would continue to somebody like Walker. I know it sounds like I'm biased here, but the thing is, it was really heartwarming for me to see a girl finally turn a guy down when the guy was not treating her the way she would want to be treated. But seeing that moment, that epic moment in that show, that was a huge game changer, just didn't have the payoff because she ended up dating him the following episode. Gosh, can we at least just stick to one thing and just be consistent with it? It was so disappointing to see that, man. Really, it really was. And speaking of ships, that takes me to my next point. Taking my personal ships out of this, taking the whole, just putting it all aside. I'm going to be unbiased here. The one issue that I have with the show, or one of the many issues that I have with the show, I wouldn't be doing a countdown list if I didn't have only one. But despite all that, the issue that I have with the show is the fact that they push together questionable ships. Mostly the main ship that I have issues with is Jonah and Andi. Not so much the fact that I don't like Jonah, even though you guys know I don't like Jonah. It's mostly because there are so many things that are toxic about this relationship that I feel like they're trying to push things together like it's the normal thing to do. Like it's the right thing to do. And I feel like that they're actually pushing this ship together because they're both attractive. She was attracted to him. Now he's liking her back. But number one, he buys her crappy gifts. He doesn't really care much about her when he goes to see other girls, or actually brings girls to their table without even talking to her first. Doesn't like anything that she likes. Don't communicate at all about important stuff, including his anxiety attacks, which is very, very important. And honestly, everything just feels forced. It feels like that he's just there mainly because he does not like to lose. He does not like the feeling of rejection. Who doesn't? But I feel like that having the family and the friends, best friends that have been around them since they were kindergarten, you would think they were in kindergarten, you would think that they will honestly know each other, even though they know about his anxiety attacks. They're not encouraging him to tell her. I just feel like that this ship is being pushed together for the wrong reasons. And I just feel like it's just extremely questionable. I don't really know why they would do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's very toxic, and I'm hoping it's not relaying the wrong message to girls and to guys as well. Alright, y'all. I got through 9 of my issues that I have with this show, leading on up to the number 1. But y'all, man, I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is something that y'all have seen a mile away. And especially my biggest gripe that I have from my last review, and how I pretty much reiterated it about maybe 4 or 5 times. But here is my number 1 issue that I have with Andi Mack. You have no idea how much it annoys me. Season 2 did it when they didn't have to. Season 1 did it when they didn't have to, towards the very end of the finale. Majority of season 2, even the triangle, the semi-triangle that they had with Walker, Jonah, and Andi did it. It's drama for the sake of drama. There are some times that you don't need to be dramatic all the time. You can just let it be organic and lead it on up to drama. But they just inserted it, kind of crammed it in there, and it just ruined the narrative. And it was to the point where it was so frustrating that I was screaming at a television set just like I was watching a football game. Like, seriously, I have never screamed so loud and be so annoyed watching Andi Mack in my entire life. And it is because of this one trope here. Drama for the sake of drama. It was annoying. I don't know why they do it so much, but it seems like they're trying way too hard, and I wish they stop. Well, guys, that is it for me. I finally let it all out. Those are my 10 top things that I hate about Andi Mack. Those are my 10 things that I hate about Andi Mack. If you guys have your own top 10 list, or 10 list period, leave it in the comments below and just let me know what you think about the show. Because honestly, guys, I really don't think that anything is going to change for season 3. Because Disney is not known for extensions when it comes to an extra season. Because the only show that I can remember that had a season 4 was That's So Raven. And honestly, even that finale was a joke. But other than that, y'all, I am not expecting anything new when it comes to season 3. Not any big revelations. But they are going to have to tie up loose ends if season 3 is going to be the last. But I am not really putting out all hope in how it's going to be. I am just going to be like, whatever. But other than that, y'all, I want to know what your thoughts are. What are your top 10 things that you hate about Andi Mack? Leave it in the comments below and let me know how you feel. I'm tired, so I'm getting out of here and going to bed. Peace out.